This video is brought to you by patreon.com/worsttake. Get access to exclusive live streams and Discord servers, on-screen shoutouts, and early access to some videos when you join now. Help make sure that we can continue to make content like this by supporting the Patreon. Links are in the description down below. It's that time of the week, and I bet y'all looking forward to this one. Because it's the time of the week where we like to get out of our bubble as Browns fans. And boy, there's never been a better week to get out the bubble. There's never been a better week to get out the bubble for Browns fans in this one. Might be one of the longest weeks I remember covering for this team in the 6 years I think I've been doing this. So definitely a fun time for Browns fans. But we got JP Acosta on. JP, let them know your credentials, man, because you got some impressive feats underneath your belt.
So I am the football writer at SB Nation, lead NFL draft writer over at SB Nation. Anywhere where there's football being played, I'm probably going to be there. I like talking about football, like writing about football. Just football is really fun, and that's why I like to share with everybody.
Definitely go check out JP. Puts together some great work. He also is a Jacksonville Jaguars fan, so he watches that team very closely. Jacksonville coming off an interesting week, and yeah, I feel like Jacksonville and the Browns kind of deal with the same thing, where it's like no matter what you do, you kind of have to deal with the stench of past failures. So, you know, Cincinnati loses to New England, and it's like, okay, some people are going to panic on Cincinnati, but most people can keep a level head about this. You guys dropped that game to Miami, and it feels like everybody's like, out, same old Jaguars. Like, is that what the feeling is in Jacksonville amongst the fan base? Is it like the same old stuff with them? Because you are coming off that collapse at the end of last season too, and then there's also, you came back on the Chargers that one time. So how are Jacksonville fans holding up right now?
It's still optimistic, but last week was a tough game. My former editor over at Big Cat Country, Alfie, he always says the Jaguars are bad until they aren't, and I generally tend to agree. I mean, losers find ways to lose games, and the Jaguars have not gotten over that hump yet in terms of developing this team. They have not found ways to win consistently, even when things go wrong. I'm still optimistic about this team because this team is very good. If Travis Etienne doesn't fumble at the goal line, they're going up 24-7 on the Dolphins and probably win that game. You know, if Christian Kirk doesn't drop two passes, you know, that they probably win that game even without the ETN fumble not happening. So it's just now about getting this team to stop with the self-inflicted wounds.
So how do you guys feel about Doug Peterson? How do you feel like that retread is going up there?
It's the honeymoon period is over. I can fully say that. It has just been really weird with Doug Peterson, and it mainly stems from who's calling plays. Nobody knows who's calling plays. You can ask any of the beat writers, nobody knows. They haven't said who's calling plays. Last year, they said Press called plays. Press Taylor, the offensive coordinator. Then the Jaguars collapsed down the stretch. Then there were rumors that Doug Peterson called the first half, Press called the second half. Then there were rumors that Doug Peterson called the first half of the Jags game, or the first half of the Dolphins game. And then Press Taylor called the second half of the Dolphins game. Nobody knows what's happening.
That is such a weird.
It's weird. It's a weird rumor. I don't think it's true, but anything can happen. Jags team.
I just think about, like, because like we know how play calls usually work, and it makes no sense to be like, all right, man, you get half, I get half. Like,
yeah, I think it's just finding someone or something to blame, especially Doug Peterson after the game in the press conference the day after was saying we need to play defense better, or Trevor needs to hit the throws, when the defense played the best game I think I've seen anyone outside of Kansas City play against the Dolphins. I believe in success rate, it was the worst offensive success rate the Dolphins had outside of the Germany game against the Chiefs, and then the
Mm.
Week 18 game against the Bills when everybody was hurt. So that it was that caliber of game for the Jaguars defensively, and Trevor Lawrence was still really good. But the fact that it's everybody's fault except for the coordinators, except for the play calling, has really rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. I'm generally more towards indifferent about it at this point. Like whoever's calling plays, like it doesn't matter. Press Taylor and Doug Peterson both come from the same tree. They are basically the same person. If you want to get rid of one, you got to get rid of both. But I just want them to not turtle in on themselves. I think this game against the Browns is the anxiety bowl for both teams because if either one loses, like a whole lot of anxiety comes out of this game.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't imagine two teams having more at stake in week 2. Like as far as fan morale and just the general vibe of the rest of the season. Now there's some things that could change the vibe for Cleveland Browns. Obviously like Nick Chubb's coming back at some point. That's going to be a vibe changer for you. You know, your offensive line getting back healthy would be a vibe changer. We'll see what happens in a couple of weeks with this Deshaun Watson situation, right? Like, and depending on how he's playing, that could be a vibe changer too. So it's not like it's going to be that way for the rest of the season. I don't think for either team, because when you got a young quarterback that you believe in, Trevor just got to put together 2 good games and then everybody's back. Right?
Yeah.
Like it is interesting. When you talk about Doug Peterson, it always pops to the top of my head, and maybe it's just how Philly operates. My man won a Super Bowl and got fired at 4 years. That ain't good. Like, what
It's
happened?
in hindsight, it's like, hey, maybe Doug wasn't exactly, maybe that wasn't hitting like he used to.
Yeah, and it's like it's tough not to give him credit because Nick Foles stepped in there and had to play, and he didn't have Carson Wentz. And I think we kind of just all associate, okay, well, Carson Wentz went to crap. Somebody had to be blamed for that. That's how Doug Peterson. But for them to be like, hey, man, we're going to blame the dude who won the Super Bowl. I don't
It's
know.
confusing. It's confusing. I think the biggest thing with the Jaguars since Doug Peterson's taken over, and this is year 3,
Yeah.
the offensive line has never been consistent. They've also never been healthy. That's a big issue. I mean, last week the Dolphins defensive line basically took over, and I think the offensive line coach isn't that good in Jacksonville.
Mm.
And then you just cannot keep collapsing at the end of games. At some point, like we can say, oh, the players have to play, the players have to make plays. You do it once, it's like, oh, players got to make plays. We'll excuse that one. You do it twice, it's like, all right, like what's going on here? You do it for like the last 8 games that the Jaguars have been on the field, that becomes a coaching problem. That becomes a whole team-wide problem. So I generally think Doug Peterson is a good coach, but something has to give, you know? So you got to start winning these close games.
Hmm. Now, we know you kind of touched on it, what you feel like the identity of this team can be, where it's like they kind of turtle in on themselves and then they do things that don't help them winning. In a What do you think they're aiming for that identity to be, whether it be offensively, defense? Like in Doug Peterson's perfect world, if everything goes right, what's Jacksonville Jaguars football?
They want to be downhill. They want to be at you, both in the run game and the passing game. You look at the first half of the Dolphins game as the perfect example of what the Jaguars want to be. They were hammering the Dolphins on duo runs, getting vertical displacement, and Tank Bigsby and Travis Etienne were having great games. Trevor Lawrence was throwing off of hard play action and not just throwing side to side, horizontal, like we're used to
Mm-hmm.
seeing him throw. He was throwing downfield. I believe I have to go back and look it up, but his average depth of target through through the first week of the season is the highest I think it's ever been for Trevor Lawrence in his career. And then defensively, this defense is going to be in your face. I think they have played less reactive than under Mike Caldwell, the former defense coordinator. With Ryan Nielsen, they're more attacking. They're going downhill really fast. Devin Lloyd and Foye Oluokun had a great game on Sunday. I think everybody on the defense played great. But the defense is going to be more attacking. The offense is going to be more attacking. It's a different mindset now. So it's a mindset of attacking, which is what makes the second half so frustrating because you were attacking and going after them so well and then just stopped in the second half.
All right, let's move on to Trevor Lawrence. He came in being one of the best quarterback prospects I think people felt like to enter the league in a while. That 1 year with Urban Meyer, I think we all agree that can be just kind of forgotten about, right? Since then,
Yeah.
he's put together a pretty consistent 25, 20 plus touchdown, 4,000-yard passing seasons. Last year, he had 14 interceptions. Part of that was he was playing with that broken ankle. I think he threw like two of them against the Browns. Like, what, three of them?
He threw
I think he threw three of them. Yeah.
three. He threw three. That was after the high ankle sprain. I
Yes.
think he also messed up his shoulder and had a concussion at the end of 2023. So just
Yeah.
he fell apart and then the offense fell apart.
Yeah. So where are you guys at with Trevor? Because I think it's kind of this weird balancing act with Trevor Lawrence because he did come in with so much hype around him, probably one of the more hyped up prospects since I don't know. Everybody says since Luck, right? That's kind of everybody's default, but there's always a guy who was hyped up since Luck that you kind of forget about. But
Yeah.
he was up there with like the Caleb Williams hype of this year's draft class. And I think that makes people expect for his numbers at this point to be in that Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, undeniable MVP candidate tier. It hasn't been that. Where do you think the book is written on Trevor yet, or do you think that there's a lot more to get? Like, where are you at with where he is in his development? Do you think this is kind of where he settles in? 25 touchdowns, 8 interceptions?
I think he is a very good quarterback in this league. I think people do not understand how bad the Jaguars have been with Trevor Lawrence outside of Trevor Lawrence himself. His rookie season, there were receivers running into each other on the field. Like it was incredibly bad. I mean, he had no help. He had poor offensive line play, poor receiver play. Laquan Treadwell was wide receiver one, which was some dark days. Doug Peterson comes in, you add Christian Kirk, and I think this offense plays better, but it is still so tight and requires Trevor Lawrence to be superhuman, which is what
Mm-hmm.
I think they are getting a little bit away from. Like Trevor Lawrence is still very, very good and can be superhuman, but the things that he needs help with at this stage, I think he is so aggressive throwing the ball or wanting to make a big play that it ends in turnovers and fumbles. But you want to harness that aggression in play action and letting him throw it downfield and making it easier on him and on your offense. So I still think he is really, really good. I don't think people understand how constrained the Jaguars offense was. And I hate to be like, oh, watch tape. Like I'm not going to be the watch tape guy, but every time I watch him play on tape, he is consistently showing me that he is one of the 10 best quarterbacks in the league.
Do you think there's a law that's in place that prevents quarterbacks by going by their actual first name? Because isn't he William?
He's,
Like, how
he's
many
brilliant.
quarterbacks are there? Like, there's like eight of them. Eight of them that start right now that don't go by their first name.
See, I gotta ask you though, which sounds better, Trevor Lawrence or Billy Lawrence? Billy Lawrence
Ugh.
sounds like a 1980s quarterback that only
If
throws
he,
like 6 touchdowns.
I got to see what his mustache game is on. Like, if he
See,
has a Ryan Fitzpatrick level mustache game, you could go by Billy. But the
he doesn't
mustache
have
game has
anything.
to be strong.
He doesn't have
Yeah.
anything there. That Billy Lawrence just seems weird. Billy Lawrence sounds like an 80s villain.
He definitely don't come off like a Willie.
No, not a Willie, not a William Lawrence. He looks like a Trevor.
Yeah, I think he.
It
Hey,
makes
I,
sense.
I always found that interesting. Like guys are just like, nah, I'm going with that other name. Like, how does that
Yeah, I'll just
happen?
go with the other one that my parents gave me in the middle. It's like, dang,
It's so much
all
more
that hurt.
common too than I think because I've never
Yeah.
thought my whole life to go by my middle name. I was
Mm-mm.
like, yeah, no, my name makes sense. Yeah, this,
Yeah,
uh,
I'm not gonna
but
go by Patrick. Like
yeah, because
that sounds lame. I'm gonna just go by JP.
what if like I wonder Patrick Mahomes goes by Pat because his dad was Pat Mahomes, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like one of those weird things where like a lot of these schools because I think Jalen Hurts is like that.
Well, Patrick's middle name is Levon, So Lavon Mahomes sounds so incredibly different than Patrick Mahomes. I think that changes everybody's thoughts
Boy, if
and
you thought he was
perception
slept
of
on in
Patrick Mahomes.
2017 as Pat Mahomes.
Oh, he made the right decision because the perception of Pat Mahomes, if he was Lavon Mahomes,
They've
would
been
be
comparing him to
so
Cardale Jones or something like that. It'd been
he,
rough,
he would
dog.
not have been drafted in the first round if his name was Lavon.
Levon, that don't even sound like a good quarterback. Like, like Levon,
Oh,
Levon, like the only way Levon could work if the last name's Miller. Like Levon Miller,
yeah.
okay, that's an edge rusher right there. Like,
Yeah, like there's Lamar Miller, played running back for the Dolphins. But
mm,
another player who goes by his middle name and not his first name is Alex Mack. And his actual first name is Javon. And so I have a question.
no,
Where
no,
you
no. We talking
Javon
about the
from?
same Alex Mack?
Yes, yes, I promise you.
Alex
Alex Mack,
Mack? Former Brown?
Alex Mack's first name is Javon.
No, I gotta look this up. I what? He played here for
I
so long.
I promise you.
Javon Alexander Mack.
That man is a Javon.
What?
Like that's crazy.
How?
But the craziest thing is Javon Mack also works as a center.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Like
That's nuts.
crazy.
That's wow. He don't look nothing like a
He doesn't look
Javon.
nothing like a Javon.
That
He
make
does
me
not
want to
look like
look
a
up like what the origins of Javon is, because clearly,
yeah.
like,
I
I had
love
no
that matchup
idea.
because
Like
how you
wow.
get Javon.
Hey, that is. Thank you for letting me know that one's I'm gonna use that one on other people because that's crazy. That's a crazy fact there. But kind of getting back, I guess, steering back to Trevor. There's where you would put him in the future, and then there's where you would put him as far as the class of quarterbacks right now. Do you think he's in that? Well, I don't know. Like, would you put Tua and Jalen Hurts in the same tier of quarterbacks?
I think so. I think if I was tiering them, Patrick Mahomes is in a tier of his own. He is
Yeah,
Patrick Mahomes, and
it's Pat.
nobody. Then I think Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson are in the next tier by themselves as
Mm.
quarterbacks who can like single-handedly like beat Mahomes. I think people have this weird misconception about Lamar that he cannot like carry a team when the only reason they lost against the Chiefs was because Patrick Mahomes was at an otherworldly level.
I would say
And
like both of those guys to me are like they could do the 07 LeBron stuff, where it's like
yeah,
you can go very far just off the strength of those guys alone, just being
yeah,
on your team and being the whole offense for you. And I don't think
yeah.
there's any other quarterbacks like outside of Pat that you can really live with that high of a usage rate on.
Mm-mm. And then in that next tier are guys who I generally think are just really, really good quarterbacks. That'd be Justin Herbert. I think Matthew Stafford is in that tier. I think he's towards the bottom of it though, just because age.
Yeah.
Um, you get Joe Burrow, Dak Prescott, and then Trevor Lawrence. So he's in that caliber of player. He's that caliber of player, but I think the Jaguars have forced and put so much on his shoulders where I talk about margins for error a lot. Like you want to make your margin of error for your quarterback wide. Like
Yeah.
Brock Purdy, we make jokes about Brock Purdy being the luckiest quarterback ever, but the Niners make the margin for error so wide on that team with the play calling and the playmakers that he can afford to mess up and it won't matter. You
Mm-hmm.
know, Trevor Lawrence, he throws a bad pass, it's intercepted, and then the Jaguars avalanche. Like it's that kind of stuff where the margin of error is so thin for this team that it requires every pass to be absolutely perfect. And we just know that's probably not going to happen because people miss. Like we've seen everybody miss. So I think he is still in that. If he's a top 10 quarterback, I think he's in like the 6 to 10 range. But those guys generally can alternate their positions week in, week out.
Why do you feel like the margin of error is so thin with this Jaguars? Is it a personnel thing, or is it just how they play that you feel like gives them that thin margin of error? Like what's specifically there?
It's personnel, and I also think it's play calling. I think
Mm,
the Jaguars personnel now has so much more verticality that it creates layers for the offense, and that'll help open up that margin for error. But the offensive line is still inconsistent. And then we talked about Press Taylor, Doug Peterson. Like, we don't know who's calling plays at this point. So that play calling and the inconsistencies of the play calling make your margin for error extremely thin. So I think that is probably the biggest reason. And it's alternated through Lawrence's career, where for early on, it was the pass protection and the receivers. Then it was the protection and the play calling. And now it's the play calling.
Yeah, yeah, it's always a gamble trying to figure out what your margin of error is going to be for what year. And sometimes it's like what you mentioned with the 49ers. They have such a good defense that even if he does throw an interception, like you could just get the ball back.
Get the
It's
ball.
like it's not a big deal.
And
Like
they probably want you to throw an interception so they can go back out there.
yeah, get the field position. like, and I know this because that's kind of what the Browns were rolling on last year was, hey, they had a ton of turnovers last year. I mean, a ton of really bad ones, but their margin of error was just so big because the defense was just able to provide that. And then you had Amari Cooper playing out of his mind at times. And then when he wasn't, David Njoku was. And that margin of error is huge. I mean, you can win games with PJ Walker when
Yeah,
your margin of error is crazy, or 38-year-old Joe Flacco,
yeah.
or even like a DTR.
Yeah, with that Browns team, the margin of error was so wide, not only because the defense was so great, but because Kevin Stefanski is still a great play caller. He wasn't going
Mm-hmm.
to have Joe Flacco or PJ Walker doing things that they couldn't do. You think about, I think Joe Flacco had like the highest play action rate in the league and then the highest average depth of target because he wasn't going to do anything else. He was going to be under center, heavy play action, and then just launch it. So if you have a defense, which is as good as the Browns defense is, all you need are like two or three explosive plays on offense.
Mm-hmm.
You need a couple of big plays. And that should be able to salt a team away because the defense is so good. But now I don't know if you're going to get that because you don't know if you can get those big plays.
Yeah, that's the big question out of Cleveland is right now, can you manufacture those big plays, specifically out the passing game? If Nick Chubb were here, you can still lean on, okay, well, Nick Chubb's gonna get you a bunch of chunk plays and that'll open up something, and it's not going to be hard to be able to take advantage of that if it happens there. But without Nick Chubb, you are leaning on Jerome Ford to do that, and it kind of transitions into, from you as a perspective, from looking at this from a Jaguars perspective, what do you look at as a concern for the Jaguars this week, going up against, like, if you're creating the game plan, what are you circling there on the Cleveland Browns roster?
My only concern on when the Browns have the ball is if Deshaun is going to use his legs to scramble.
Mm-hmm.
That's I don't think he is the same caliber athlete as he was 4 years ago, but he is still willing to run when it comes to seeing pressure. If he can turn those explosive plays, like he's not going to throw the ball. I don't think he's going to throw the ball well enough to beat this Jaguars team. But if he can generate explosives with his running ability, and it's a big if because we haven't seen that from him consistently. If he can generate those explosives in the run game with his legs, then that creates a bigger problem because of how much man coverage the Jaguars play. They play a lot of two man, they play a lot of cover one. Last week it worked against Miami because Tua was not a runner, but there were yards to be had if he scrambled. So now I wonder, do the Jaguars transition less out of that man coverage and more into zone because Deshaun's not as great processing and you force him to throw the ball? Or if you play man, do you let him scramble and gang tackle? Because the defense looked fast. They looked like they were
Mm-hmm.
able to tackle. So that's really the only thing that I see from the Browns offense that would give me some pause. But defensively, it's all about Myles Garrett. How are you going to craft this game plan to avoid letting him wreck your game? Are you going to use play action? Are you going to use screens? Are you going to get the ball out quick just to throw him off? You got to make him think, make him react instead of letting him just tee off on the QB because the tackles were fine, but Myles Garrett is going to wreck a game plan if you leave him, if you try and run a standard drop back passing game.
Yeah, usually it's. I'm interested to see what this year looks like because like halfway through last year, you could just see a visible change in like how seriously teams took that threat of Myles Garrett being there. It's like they always took it seriously, but then it was like a different level of urgency there. And I think that really did affect his numbers, but it's why he won Defensive Player of the Year. I think people saw that. And it's going to be interesting a whole offseason of people just like knowing, hey, he's coming. This is the guy that you're playing against, and wondering how teams are going to adjust to that and how the Browns try to, adjust to those adjustments and try to use guys like Za'Darius to kind of break those plans. I think JOK is a real big part of it, right? Where it's like you want to kind of hover around and take advantage of anything that they leave open or that they just slide all the way to Myles. Like just try to take advantage of that gap being open there. But it's going to be interesting to see this week. I think it's gonna be an anxious football game. Usually, right when I do the live stream for these games, and like the Browns go up 14, or like the other team goes up 14, I get a bunch of the other team's fans in my stream. They're talking a gang of shit. I don't think that's gonna happen this week. I feel like both sides are gonna be like, "Oh nah, man, we gonna wait till this game's over to say anything that we got to say." It is possible that this game could end in a tie.
Yeah, it would be it'd be so much like the Jags and Browns for this game to just end like 13-13.
Yeah. And like no questions are answered. Like no
None at all.
question. You're
None
like,
at
this
all.
was a filler episode of
Yeah,
football this
the
week.
Jags go up like 7-0, end up tying 13-13. Quarterback for the Browns still doesn't play good. Like everything just goes to shit and nobody leaves happy.
I think it's like the football equivalent of, because I remember when I was in daycare, this dude kept on watching these Dragon Ball Z tapes. Like he would hold the TV up and watch these Dragon Ball Z tapes. I was like, dog, it's been a month. He's still holding that ball in the air. What is going on in this show? Like, it's like it could be like that.
Like this is the character development episode. You know? This is the one baseball episode every anime has.
Starts out and it's a cutback of Miles' childhood. We're
Yep.
like, where is this episode?
Like, what are we doing? What's happening here? We're gonna get a whole side story about the stadium being named Trevor Bank Field.
Oh yeah, that's weird. Does that make you feel
Um,
more or less confident about this game?
Less, emphatically less. Like if they did this against any other team, I'd be like, I don't care. And I still am like, just win the game, it won't matter. But
Mm-hmm.
too much anxiety in this one.
And it's
Because
your home opener.
yes, so if he doesn't play good and they lose, I never want to see Trevor Bank Field again. Burn it,
Yeah.
bury
It's
it.
kind of like how the Bengals lost. They did the orange out. And it's like,
Yep.
well, you can't do that anymore. It's over
Not again.
with. Yeah,
Not
it's
again.
done. You
No
ruined it.
special uniforms.
Yeah,
Not
it's
until y'all
done.
win.
You could lose on the road in the special uniforms and then bring it back at home. You can't lose at home in the special uniforms and ever bring it back,
And you can't
especially if
lose
it's the
like that.
debut.
You can't lose
Yeah.
like that. Like you can't lose because you missed 14 tackles. Like you might have to hang those up for the season.
Look, it's the most underrated thing about sports fandom, the uniform paranoia. But I bet you felt much better about the Jaguars once they switched out them two tones, right? The same way
Absolutely.
I was like, it's a new
Absolutely.
era. Once we got out of the FUBUs,
They brought back the throwbacks and all the hope came back this season. I'm like, oh, they're gonna do this. They're gonna do the damn thing.
Oh yeah, and look, Atlanta, I'm gonna tell you this right now. Don't start Michael Penix until you got some new uniforms ready because he don't need to be in them stankers. Okay, y'all about to change them
When can the
when
Falcons do uniforms?
they got them FUBU jerseys like 3 years ago. I think they got 2 more years they stuck with it and they changed it.
Let's see. An NFL team can change uniform designs every 5 years.
Yeah. And I
So
think they got that 2021.
it was 2020.
Oh, so they about to
So
do it.
you got one more year.
Hey Kirk, you gonna have to hold it together.
Kirk, just hold the just
Mhm.
drive the wheel. Just hold the wheel.
Uh-huh. The second they announce them uniforms, don't even drop a Kirk Cousins one, dog. Like we already know they about to move
We don't
on.
need we
Like,
don't need to see any more ATL Kirko. We don't need Kirko chains. Not anymore.
gonna be a whole new Bijan walks in that building. Like, and you
They
know
will
what?
immediately go like 13-4.
Oh,
Going
and
back to
immediately what Nike's gonna do? go back to the 90s Falcons jersey. Like,
Mhm.
this is Nike has been running a scam, I'm telling you, because they do this. They put out the nasty new jersey that they gonna have, right? And they
Mhm.
drop that on you like they did with Denver this year. But
Yeah.
you know what else they drop? Oh, here's a classic alternate look that looks really nice. Right? Oh, this
That's
is
what,
cool.
that's what they did with
Right?
the Jags and the throwbacks. They call them
Uh-huh.
alternates.
Yeah.
So they can't wear or no, the alternate jerseys that they have all whites.
Mm-hmm.
They have like white out and they have the white helmet. But they can only wear the white helmet with white, or they can only wear it with teal, which is weird, but that's the only alternate jersey they have. So it can only be alternate with alternate. And I'm like, this is y'all make it so weird. The NFL makes it weird. Uniform combinations. Just let them
Mm-hmm.
just wear what they want.
I'm telling you, it's a racket because they'll drop the ugly new one. They'll also drop a classic refresh, and then they'll spend 5 years of the ugly new ones and be like, you know what? We can change it. Let's let's pay for 5 more years of research and development to get you new jerseys that we already made. We just go and change the colors on them, and we ain't even come up with the design. This back from what was it? The Riddell used to make the jerseys like in the
Yeah,
90s. Like
yeah,
we out here remaking the starter jerseys now. Like every
yeah.
team's jersey is slowly just going back to what it was in the 1990s. And nobody's noticing that Nike's been getting away with this the whole time. All they gonna do, like the Jets, did this just happen with the Jets? The Jets
It
did
did.
it. They switched up the Jets thing. Now the Jets wear what they wore in the 90s. The Browns back to what they wore in the 90s, right? Like the Tampa Bay back to what they wore in 2000 because they 90s jerseys was the creamsicles. But don't worry, if
They
the
had those
2000
too.
jersey, yeah, they got those. They got those coming. They got the new helmets. The helmet rule done change. Look, I see what you doing, Nike. And my question is, what you gonna do after you run out of throwbacks? Because we saw what you
Mhm.
had the Giants out there in. You can't go back to them 20 throwbacks. Like what's next? We just dangerously not even trying to innovate anymore on these uniforms.
No, no
And
creativity. Just
and like
throwback and like white uniforms.
remember when college uniforms used to go crazy with the innovation?
Oh, they would fly way too close to the sun, but I at least gave them an effort for trying. Like Florida used to have the Gator scale uniforms. They were
Ooh.
ugly as hell, but
Remember when
I
Pro
appreciate the
Combat
effort.
came out in like '08?
Hmm.
And it was like these gonna be like it feels funny thinking about it now because it looks so different in '08. But if you go back from like 2024 sensibilities and look at those Pro Combat jerseys, they look normal. But I remember thinking like it looks like they have no pads on when I used to see it. And now it's just like that's what every jersey kind of looks like, except for the Pro Combat jersey. We're gonna have highlights over where the pads should
Yeah,
be.
like everybody got a black jersey now, and some teams don't need black jerseys. Like, why
Yeah.
does he have a black jersey? What are you doing?
You said
You're
who got a
Tennessee.
black jersey? Tennessee got
Tennessee.
a black jersey?
Yeah. Like, why? It's stupid. Just
Yeah.
wear white and orange. Y'all are like one of the brands of college football. If
Wait,
I ever see
oh,
US, if I ever see USC in black jerseys, I want the whole program shut down.
don't the
Because y'all want
Colts have a black jersey?
the Colts do have a black jersey, and they look like a
And
UFL
they're
team.
like, yeah, it's like a Route 20. Remember Route 21 used to sell them like little baseball jerseys? And they would have
Yeah.
like the sparkles on the back and the galaxy print.
Yeah.
That's I think about that every time I look at it. I'm like, what is this? Like,
Hmm. Like it's like at some point you got to be creative a little bit. Like not everybody can just bring a throwback.
and my thing is like, if you want to do a throwback, okay, but you could change up the jersey number color, right? Like if
Mhm.
the Browns brought a throwback back, they got the white jersey. I'm like, how nice would them jerseys look like if you had like a nice brown outline and like an orange letter in it? I'm like, that would probably look good if you could do that or something along those lines. Like you can make it classic without like going full goof mode with it, but I don't know, man. This is probably a byproduct of having the owners decide what these jerseys look like, and they're making decisions on what they think kids like, and they don't know. They 80.
Yeah. I don't even think the kids like it.
No, the kids don't. Nobody liked the Browns jerseys that they
Yeah,
switched
that's fair.
to.
That's fair.
Like nobody liked what the Browns jerseys were like. The only thing it did was it did an enormous amount of PR for like the classic Browns jersey, because that used to get clowned for being an ugly football jersey before the Browns switched. And then they switched to the FUBU era jerseys, and everybody was like, you know what? The Browns have a classic look. It should have never changed.
Yeah.
And I'm like, thank you for that. Thank you for that, Nike, because the only reason people appreciate the Browns look now is because
the other jersey.
Yeah, they saw how bad it could get.
Let's get that out of here immediately.
Yeah, why would you try to modernize a team who has a rule that you can't put a logo on the helmet? Like, what about that tells you should modernize it?
Like, you flew too close to the sun here. Why don't y'all go mess with like the Chargers unis again?
I know, like Baltimore. Baltimore's got kind of a classic look, right? Where it's like a new school kind of thing. The Texans are a team where you can get a little spicy with it. The Panthers, right? They have no history.
Panthers have no history. They don't have any alternate jerseys. Like, go mess with them.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they would like to get a new jersey.
Absolutely.
Guy Bryce Young out there wearing what Cam used to wear. That's why everybody think he's so tiny. Like, you see Cam Newton in person, and it's like, imagine getting used to that in that jersey, and then now you got Bryce Young, and it's like, ooh.
He out there in the Pee Wee jerseys.
I'm glad they took Cam off the team before they drafted Bryce, because man, that would have been a bad photo.
That would have been the Derrick Henry, Mark Ingram photo. It's like, one of these guys is starting.
Yeah. Hey man, Bryce, when did you play Myles Garrett? Missed that game.
Don't.
Hey, you don't need that photo. Okay.
Not at all.
Like Myles Garrett, Calais Campbell, like any of these dudes who are just 6'6" out there. Just miss that photo out, man.
When they play the Texans, I don't think he got a photo with Will Anderson. I'm glad he didn't.
Hey,
big dude.
Who's the other one they got from Minnesota? DeAndre? No. Oh, Hunter. Danielle Hunter. Stay away. No
shot. You have no chance.
Hey, bruh, it's rough because he do all the worst short guy stuff too. Like he be wearing backpacks. He don't understand how to make himself look taller. And then he kind of just built like a small guy. Like he got them long arms too, like a Tyler be at. It's tough, bro. He ain't even that short. He's like 5'10".
5'10" is an average size, but Bryce Young somehow makes it look smaller.
So small.
He and Kyler Murray are the same height.
Yeah, but Kyler rocked up. Yeah. Or like Baker Mayfield's 5'11", not even that much bigger, but you don't really think about that because Baker's always been like a bigger, like a thicker build of a quarterback,
like
or Drew Brees.
5'10".
Yeah.
I think it's the shoulder pads. Bryce needs to get bigger shoulder pads.
Some dudes don't carry 205 the same too, because I remember like Johnny Manziel was 205 and Baker Mayfield was 205, and I could not imagine that they're the same 205. Like those are two completely different builds of 205, because like Johnny is the only guy I'm like, he looks smaller than Bryce Young when I see him out there. Now, does he look slower than Bryce Young? No. But I remember there was one game where Johnny had like 76 rushing yards and he had like 12 passing yards or something like that.
All that matters. They don't ask how, they ask how many.
Hey, bro. He just gave up on the playbook. He was, I'll just run it. But
throw the ball.
Oh, good fun there. Do you have a final vibe going into this game? I'm not going to ask you for a prediction because that could be very chaotic. But do you have a final vibe going into the Anxiety Bowl this weekend?
Jags better not lose. Both teams cannot afford to lose this game, which makes this feel even more anxiety riddled because I just know this game is going to be full of mistakes.
I would say
shooting themselves in the foot.
Both teams, you know what this is? I don't know if both teams need to win, but it's like pro wrestling. it's better be a good match.
Yeah.
Like this feud needs a good match in order to justify it. It's like Jericho Hook. It's like, bruh, this needs to be good in order for you to justify any of this going on right now. Like, y'all need to have one of the best matches of the night. Because I feel like if you have a great game and it just bounces one way or the other, and it's not like the Jaguars lose because like they let something crazy happen. It's like, okay, Miles took over. There wasn't much you could do about that. It wasn't like just complete inaptitude on either side on why you lost. And it just came down to it. I feel like both teams could accept a loss like that. It sucks going 0-2, but you can come back from 0-2. It's still like what? A bunch of games left in the season. So, I mean, like going down 0-2, it's not that big of a deal. But if you look bad, like if the Jaguars blow a lead this week, that's not.
That's why I'm saying they have to win. I think for Cleveland,
if the Browns score like 10 points, you're not going to feel good, right? Like, even if you do win, there are a lot of ways this could go outside of a win-loss result where you could feel good or bad about what happened. The Jaguars could win, but like almost collapse, and then they only win because like the Browns or Deshaun Watson just completely inept at the end of the game. And you probably walk out there like,
win is a win.
Great. Like,
a win is a win.
There's a range of things that could happen. And I think for both teams, you want to see a competent, well-played, really good football game, right?
For 4 quarters.
For 4 quarters. And the result is at the end what the result is. But you want to walk away thinking, you know what? We are a competent football team. And that the other team just got the better of us that day. But I feel like if we played them 10 times, we would win 5, right? Exactly. At the very least. That's it. Yeah, you just want to feel like that because none of us feel like that coming off of our week 1. I don't feel like if we played the Cowboys 10 times Sunday, we would have won 5 of them. I don't know what that was that we saw week 1.
I think if the Jaguars played the Dolphins 10 times, they probably win 5 of them. But the problem is that one time, everything just fell apart in the second half. So my thing for Jacksonville is if you are the better team, go out there and immediately make it clear you are the better team. The Cowboys did a great job of doing that against the Browns in week 1. They did not mess around early. They took the wind out of that game. The Jaguars don't really take the wind out of games. They let you hang around. They let you hang around, and then the Jaguars fall apart, and then that's how the Dolphins won.
We'll see, man. We'll see. I think for both of our sanity, you just need this game to be good, you know.
Just need confidence.
We just need a "this is awesome" chant. We need this to be one of them Osprey matches on pay-per-view. Like
just give me a few spots where it's like you just jumped off top rope. Maybe give me a little spot. And
you get Trevor Lawrence and Myles Garrett doing the Ricochet Will Ospreay Power Ranger jump, stand off. And you're like, hey, okay. We might be all right.
So that's all we need. We just need something to clap our hands a little bit.
You know, I think we all just need something. I talk about this all the time. Browns fans have not watched their team play a competitive football game, preseason, regular season, or playoffs since the Jets game last year. And I think it's taking its toll. I'm dead serious. It's taking it. Like, I know the preseason doesn't matter, but when you watch your team get blown out in the preseason, it still don't feel good, right? Even if you know it don't matter, it's just like, you don't like seeing it. And it's like, that happened. You lose the game against the Texans, which is understandable because of Joe Flacco. Like, it turned into interception Joe Flacco at the end, whatever. And then the Cincinnati game that you sat your starters, like, all of those losses are kind of understandable. But when you just have a bunch of them, and it's been since like last Christmas that Browns fans have sat down to watch a Browns game, whether it mattered or not, and been like satisfied fully with the result in a undeniable way, it's gonna take its toll. And I think that's where the fan base is at. It feels like we're in the midst of a 6-game losing streak, but it's only week 1.
Oh, believe me, I get it. The last time the Jaguars were like 8-3 going into Monday night against Cincinnati at home.
Yeah.
Got hurt.
My bad.
And from there, just everything fell apart. We even lost to the Browns. We lost to
Yeah.
Joe Flacco. We were one of those teams.
Yeah, we got that win after we beat y'all.
Yeah, that was it. Like
Yeah.
you just cannot look bad. You cannot look bad and you cannot fall apart in the second half. Or else the same old Jags, the 2023 Jags, you'll never be able to exercise that demon.
All right. Well, JP, thank you for coming on, giving me your time. Make sure you check out JP. Your Twitter is what? JP underscore Acosta.
Acosta 32 underscore JP.
Oh, my bad there. I didn't mean to mess it up. But go make sure you go check him out. Does some great work. Draft stuff. Hey, Browns got their first round pick back. It actually matters again this year. It's been so long, JP, since we had our first round pick. We finally got it back. So that's gonna be super fun to look at during the year. And I definitely gotta have you back on to talk draft later on. So thank you, JP. Everybody else have a great day. Have a better night. Peace.